Wow, just when I thought last week's episode was intense, we got a lot of stuff to talk about this week. Everybody, so we're now on episode 5 of Loki on Disney+. One more Loki Wednesday after today. It's kind of bittersweet, but it has been such a blast talking about the show each and every week as the episodes drop. Last week we had some insane reveals, so I've been looking forward to this episode all week to get some answers. We saw Mobius get pruned, the timekeepers themselves were actually androids, and of course Loki gets pruned as well, and he wakes up in front of a bunch of other Loki variants, Kid Loki, Classic Loki, Gator Loki. Not sure how they do it, but this show still continues to find a way to keep me guessing while also being very entertained. Episode 5 was another phenomenal episode. Thankfully, right off the bat, we figure out where the hell Loki is, because that was like the big question last week. He got pruned, and where the hell is he with all these different Loki variants? We find out it's a place called the Void, which, you know, not the most crazy name in the world, but it does get the job done. We find that out thanks to Renslayer when she's questioned by Sylvie. It's just interesting to see how the TVA actually works, because we do see the pruning. Up until basically the last episode, we kind of just figured once you got pruned, you were just gone, like disintegrated, don't exist anymore. But you actually just get sent to a void in time. Like, there's a lot of people there. We find out later on that Mobius is there as well, and Sylvie actually self-prunes. Didn't know you could do that, but I guess you can self-prune if you really want to. I swear, once she flipped that switch in the last episode and just went full villain mode, Renslayer's just been really devious and very shady, even more so than the earlier on episodes. We see her talking to Sylvie, kind of trying to form a little bond, it seems like, to try and, like, quote-unquote rescue Loki, which is, of course, a lie. It feels really hard to actually get a read on her sometimes, you know, just kind of curious what actually she knows was truth and what was false, because it seems like she actually didn't know that the timekeepers were fake. As we learn in later on in the episode, she has B-15 actually held hostage, and she seems like she doesn't know the timekeepers were fake, and whoever actually is in charge or who created the TVA, they're in danger. But I am still mildly skeptical just because she does have that connection to Kang the Conqueror in the comics. I fully expected to go into this episode loving the situations that were put in with Loki and all these other variant Lokis, Classic Loki, Alligator Loki, Kid Loki, and etc. But I did not expect to just see how hilarious it was going to be. Loki just accepting that there's just Alligator Loki. I think Alligator Loki was one of the real MVPs of this episode. Of course, he doesn't really have any dialogue of sorts. He was the real MVP, other than Richard Grant. I mean, Richard E. Grant is amazing always, but him playing Classic Loki, that's just like perfect casting in my opinion, as he is someone who can bring a lot of personality to the role. Plus, it was just awesome hearing the different backstories of all these different variant Lokis. Kid Loki actually killed his version of Thor. Classic Loki faked his death when Thanos killed him and he ran away. Boastful Loki is like the only one's backstory just seems a little bit embellished when he talks about how he gathered all the stones and killed Captain America and all that stuff. He's probably the one that gets the least as far as development goes. The big mission of the episode is them at least trying to come together to take on this giant monster that's like this big cloud kind of thing. Kind of reminded me a bit of the Galactus from the Fantastic Four films, but a much better version of that. A much more intimidating, imposing foe. It actually has some sort of characteristics. Especially as we find out later on in the episode that it's actually kind of like guarding the main thing that we're trying to get to in the finale. One of the more interesting surprises to me when it comes to this episode is actually the other variant Loki that's played by Tom Hiddleston, President Loki. That was cool. Like, that was actually a good misdirect, because I just expected him to just be the Loki that we see and he kind of like taken over this group. But no, it's a completely different variant Loki. Very boastful, very like much like super evil Loki, but a big battle ensues, of course. Gator Loki actually bites off his hand as this big battle ensues. Richard E. Grant's using illusions to do stuff and also escape at the same time. I mentioned a bit ago, but Sylvie does end up on the planet after she's self-pruned. She's getting chased by this giant, creepy, scary cloud monster. Thankfully, Mobius is there to swiftly save the day in his pizza van. That was pretty great that he has this pizza van, but it's also just great to just see Owen Wilson back as the character, because for a minute there, at least last episode before we figured out the whole pruning situation with Loki, I really did think he was just gone from the series for the next couple episodes, so it's great that he actually is going to continue to be in the show. Even if they weren't really apart for a very long time in the context of the series, it was actually kind of cute seeing all these characters reunite. Loki, Sylvie, Mobius. I mean, I've just grown so attached to these characters over these episodes. Like, I've just really liked them a lot, especially this new Loki, just because he's developed so much. He's had some really great growth in this series. Him and Sylvie have this really kind of awkward conversation about things, conjures up blankets, but it's interesting to see his growth, him accepting himself for who he is, and also just the fact that he's trying to get Sylvie to actually trust him, and he's trying to actually make friends, which is something that you don't really see Loki ever do, is try to make friends with people. Which is why it was such a cute moment when Loki and Mobius actually hug, and he calls Mobius his friend. I just love love them so much. Like I said, it was kind of a bummer for the final battle to not include a lot of the other Loki variants. The only other one that really gets in on the action is Classic Loki. Classic Loki is badass. I mean, he's conjuring an entire Asgard to help take on this monster. Seemingly dying in the process, which is kind of a disappointment for me because I did like him a lot, but I hope that maybe just because of the multiverse stuff, we'll see him again in some shape or form. Thanks to that, though, Sylvie and Loki are able to actually enchant the monster. A big hole opens up in the cloud, and then we see like a building. It looks like we're going to finally see who's behind everything. I'm curious who it's going to end up being. Is it going to be Kang? You know, we know he's going to be in Quantumania. Is it going to be someone else completely? I'm very excited to see, I guess, who's behind it all. You know, since it is the final episode, we're going to find out who's behind everything. And I think that's going to be really exciting. I have no idea where this is going, and I think that's kind of like a fun thing, the fact that like we have so many different ways this can go, a lot of fun theories. But make sure you share your thoughts down below. What did you think of episode 5 of Loki? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Share your thoughts down below. What you thought of all the different things that happened in the episode, and if you have any theories for the finale, make sure you share those as well, because that's part of the fun of this, having a discussion with you guys. Thanks so much for checking my review, so I really appreciate it. Make sure to like it, the subscribe button, for keep the reviews, reactions, unboxings, and more. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.